Yes, I'm still here, Hollywood. And coming up on today's episode...
He's a familiar face to anyone who loves smart, offbeat television. An actor and director whose work has earned both critical acclaim and a loyal following. With his sharp wit, unmistakable charm, he became a household name alongside Janine Turner in one of the most beloved series of the 90s, Northern Exposure. This is Still Here Hollywood. I'm Steve Kmetko. Join me with today's guest, Rob Morrow. If this is your first time watching or listening to Still Here Hollywood, what took you so long? Even if you're a longtime fan, I have a favor to ask. If you feel it in your heart, please like and follow us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to us. Or if you watch on YouTube, please subscribe. And with both, it would be great if you rated and commented on your favorite episodes. Thank you so much. And now, on with the show. Thanks for stopping by and agreeing to do this. We're having a good time. It's been about a year now. One of the things we were talking about prior to sitting down and turning on the cameras was how young you look.
Thanks.
You don't appear to have aged a day since Northern Exposure.
I have. My chiropractor would attest to it. It's really luck of the genetic draw, except that I do take care of myself. I am healthy. I am, I would say, spiritual, in not in a dogmatic sense, but I am. But that helps. I meditate a lot every day. I am sober now over a year, which is interesting for me because I didn't have a problem per se. Alcohol was my thing. Pot was my thing for like 30 years. I love pot. And I used it effectively. It didn't, I never used it at work, but I used it a lot. I was a stoner. And now not using it, first of all, I feel high a lot, and I don't mean like the THC is still, my friends joke there's so much in my system that I'm still, but it's not that. It's like a new reality. It's like this, it's the opposite, because what was happening is it was dulling me, I think, on a lot of levels. It was starting to dull me. And so anyway, I think a lot of these things contribute to me looking young, but the interesting thing is I think it works against me in my career because I am not a kid, and yet they won't cast. Sometimes when I have to do a self-tape, I don't do them that often, but when I do them, I gray my hair and my hair is, and my friends don't believe me. Like, I've never dyed my hair. It's this, for whatever reason, it's not going gray yet. I know it will, but they won't cast me as the kind of, they tend not to cast me as the older, mature, and yet I'm too old to play the 45-year-old. So it's like, I think it's hurting me. But nevertheless, my life is good, so I'm not complaining.
I don't know. I think you'd pass for 45 with no problem.
I would, but the problem is they're going to cast the real 45-year-olds. So
it's always something.
It's all, you know who said that?
Who?
Gilda Radner wrote a book just before she passed away, and the title of it was "It's Always Something," which I think about all the time. I mean, because every job I do, there's always something. There's someone that's a pain in the ass. There's something about it that doesn't work. It's always something. And I think when we accept that and don't resist it or fight it, we're happier.
Tell me, we were talking earlier. You said one of the things that has stuck with you, is the birth of your daughter?
Yeah.
How come? How so? Other than the fact that you're the father.
Well, first of all, being a parent, are you a parent? Right. Well, it was the first time I actually had perspective, right? When my daughter was born, I am a narcissist, I am ambitious, I am materialistic, I've been on a focused path since a very young age, and when she was born, it was like, oh, someone is more important than me. And the most important thing from my perspective was I have to make sure this creature flourishes. That's the priority. No matter what I want, no matter what job I want, or what house, or what trip, or what car, whatever I want, the priority is this person. And that was liberating for me because I felt like, okay, I know, I get it. Like, now I know what my life's purpose is. I've got to make sure this person's okay. And none of it's easy. But when she was born, I was directing a show called Oz, you remember?
Mm-hmm.
Right, for HBO.
HBO, right.
And my wife went into the hospital, and I stayed overnight with her, and I was not going to go to work. It was all worked out. There was a great actor named Terry Kinney, who you've seen in a zillion things, and he's a director as well as an actor, and he was on the show. And so we had made a plan that if I had to leave I was not going to miss my daughter being born, so he was going to take over for me. So we had that worked out. But so I go to the hospital with my wife at night. She says she's, ready, and we go. And the baby doesn't come, and she ends up only being like 2 centimeters dilated, so she wasn't even near. But the next morning, I said to the doctor, I said, look, if you tell me I should stay because it's going to happen soon, then I will. But if I can go to work, it was my last day of the episode. And he said, go to work, I can give you an hour's notice, and you'll come, you'll be here. So I go to work, I'm shooting, I'm setting up the last shot. I'm explaining to the DP what I want. Camera here, come over here. And the phone rings. I have it on my thing. I just look at it. I say, hey, they say now. I just point to Terry. I point to him. I walk out the door. My car's there. I get in the car. I drive to the hospital, illegally park, and go upstairs. And the doctor had decided to do a C-section at that point. And I didn't quite understand, it was all blurry. Now I'm on 12, 13, 14 hours the night before. I hadn't slept, so it's starting to get very surreal, but I'm so excited. But they said they needed to do a C-section because there was some complication. And then the doctor winked at me and said, told you I'd wait. And in retrospect, I realized that I think he just wanted to go home, and he didn't want to wait around anymore. So he just elected to do, which I'm told is done all the time. So my daughter was born with a C-section, which I became an advocate of because she came out pristine and beautiful. The next night, I was also, I didn't say this at the first, I was also acting in a movie called The Emperor's Club with Kevin Kline. And I was going back and forth, on schedule, and I had to go shoot that night. And I remember now I'm on like close to 48 hours with no sleep. And I'm just sitting there doing a scene with Kevin like this. And I just remember hearing kind of echoing of the DP and the director, Mike Hoffman, talking, saying, I can't get light into his eyes. They're just so low. And they were like, Rob, can you keep your eyes open a little more? And I was like, so that's my birth story. I don't know why. It just felt... my daughter just turned 24. She's a little baby actress. She's a badass. I'm pretty sure you'll be hearing from her. And so here I am 24 years later.
You're talking about the clarity that her birth brought to your life. That's kind of the same way I feel about stopping drinking.
Yeah.
All of a sudden there was a clarity that I didn't have before.
Now tell me, you were an alcoholic, or
Yes.
You are an alcoholic, I guess I say, and it was really bad. Like you were like,
well, I
not
never
at
thought
work.
I never thought it was bad, but enough people around me started saying, you kind of knock this off.
And how much could you consume?
You know what? After I left Los Angeles, I moved back to Chicago because my parents were there, and they were both in their 90s, and I wanted to be there for them. I couldn't find work here, and so I went home, and being around my family more, because my family's in Chicago, they started saying things. I ran into somebody who recently passed away himself. His name was John Smith. And I remember when I met him, I said, your name's not John Smith, come on. But it
John
was.
Smith.
Yeah. And he was such a mentor for me. And all the things...
He was a mentor in showbiz?
No, just in my sobriety journey.
Yeah.
And
so what was your would you drink all day long?
No, I tell you, when I went back to Chicago and I couldn't find work, I got a job with Apple in their store, one of their stores, selling computers, which I didn't know anything about. I was so depressed that alcohol was my calming.
Sure.
I'll tell you, this is what I would do. I would drive home at the end of a day. The store would close at 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock. I would drive home, stop at a liquor store, pick up a bottle of Johnny Walker Black. I'm not being paid for that. Pick up a whole bottle of Johnny Walker Black, and I would go to bed. I would take a couple of sleeping pills, and I would drink the entire bottle.
The entire bottle.
The entire bottle.
And in a 2-hour period?
Yeah.
And pass out. And you'd wake up?
The next day, yeah.
But you could sleep late because you had a late job or something?
Yeah.
But that was it. It wasn't like you weren't going socializing. You just were using it to anesthetize yourself.
Right. I had a cousin who lives in the country, Vicky, if you're watching. She always does. But she asked me once, I don't understand. Why did you drink so much? And I said, it's not easy to explain, but I wanted to black out.
Yeah,
I wanted to shut everything out. That's why I did it.
Yeah, that's why we do it.
Yeah.
That's what I miss. And I don't really miss it because, first of all, I could do anything I wanted right now. I didn't have a problem with alcohol. I would have, a big party drink night. It was 3 drinks. That's like would be the max I would ever have, and it was rarely that. It was usually 2 drinks on a Saturday night, maybe a glass of wine or 2 during the week. So it wasn't an issue. The pot would be, and it wasn't even like, I got into eating it because the smoking wasn't working. I sing, so it wasn't. So I was eating like, often 5 milligrams of candy at the end of the day, like for a cocktail, right? So it wasn't like, I didn't have like this huge problem. I could function, I could do anything. I couldn't work. Although as a writer, I would always do what I called my stoner draft. And I would do all the structural work, I would do all the labor, all the hard stuff, and then I would go and do a draft with being a little high, and always get good stuff, right? Because the next day I would, under clarity of sobriety, I would be like, it was good. And so I was scared I was going to lose that. But so I didn't have to stop it. I just wanted to. And but what I do sometimes think I'd miss is that sense of being able to just stop the world. I want to get off for a minute, because look, life is difficult. It's for all of us. I don't care who you are, and how much you have. Life, the Buddhists say life is suffering, and so we want to get away. And so, first of all, I applaud you for being able to do it. But I'm curious, was it an evolution, your drinking? Like you were a social drinker and then it became a problem, or?
Oh, there's a lot of different elements. When I got fired by E, and I went home and I had nothing to do
all day.
Is that
for drinking? No.
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 Right. Just lousy management.
Right.
I would go home and start drinking. I found a liquor store in my neighborhood that delivered.
Yeah.
And so I lived on a hillside in Silver Lake. And when I would finish drinking, because I didn't want people to find this stuff in my garbage cans, so I'd walk out to the edge of the property, and I would heave the bottle down into the bushes, the ivy covering the hillside. And when I started hearing clinks,
what an image!
Yeah, you're doing this too much. You can't do this anymore.
Yeah. Shame is an interesting component of it, right?
And I was raised in a Baptist household, so shame was omnipresent.
Right. And so you got into you said you went into rehab?
3 times.
3 times. So you would go and come back and fall, and then life would get to you and you would start again.
Yes.
And how were you able to finally make the?
I just got to a point, age-wise,
right,
where I knew this was not a good thing.
Yeah.
And there have been alcohol. Nobody in the family had a stroke, but there were a number of members of the family that drank too much.
Right. Right. So it was in the genes.
Yeah.
Yeah. My dad was an alcoholic.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, it's and that was, I think, a lot of my motivation was the idea of getting older and knowing that even a little bit of alcohol is not good for you. And I started to read reports about pot not being good for you. I have to be conscious of my heart, and it's funny. It's like the clarity that I have and the productivity that I have now. And I was a pretty productive guy to begin with, but it's like a new lease or something. Like I'm, as I said, I'm enjoying it.
That's exactly how it feels, like a new lease.
Yeah.
Somebody woke you up, Steve.
Yeah.
Be grateful.
Good for you.
And it's the same kind of thing. Every once in a while I think, boy, it would be nice to just turn everything off. Excuse me. But that doesn't... one of the things when I had my stroke, I remember them telling me when I got in the hospital, it's like a standard pattern. When you have one stroke, you're likely to have a second one.
Oh, wow.
Really? Thanks for telling me that. I feel so much better.
So how do you, what kind of preventative stuff do you have to do?
I try to stay active.
Yeah, that's important.
I try not to sleep as long as I like to.
Why? What's wrong with sleep? I thought sleeping's the...
No. I'm to the point where, I have got no specific job to go to other than this one, but I love this one. And so, if I could stay in bed with my two dogs with the TV on.
Oh, so you're not sleeping, you're just in bed.
Right.
But how much do you sleep? What's your hour?
I go to bed, most nights I'll be in bed by 9 o'clock, and I'll get up around 7 a.m.
7 a.m. So that's 9 hours of actual sleep.
Well, yeah.
That's pretty great.
Getting up to pee.
But that's great. I mean, that's one of the most healthy things we can do, especially as we get older. I've started doing this thing. During COVID, I was never a terrible sleeper, and pot certainly helped me sleep. But I don't know if it gave me the rest. I don't know. But it was never like a big issue. I mean, a couple times a week maybe. But during COVID, Arianna Huffington put out a book called The Sleep Revolution, which I read, and she had great insights about how to get the rest and why we need it, and broke it all down. And I adopted some of those practices, and so now I'm like 7 to 8 hours if I'm, usually no less than 7. But what I've started doing is I've been meditating for 15 years, and it's 40 minutes a day. But what I started doing is doing it in bed, which I call meditation. And I wake up, like today, I woke up at 7:15, and I stayed and I meditated till like 8:30, and I'm not sleeping. Like, I'm totally conscious, but I'm meditating, and that's become really I start the day in such a good mood because of it. So that's my new thing.
Do you do it every day?
Every day. I let myself take Sundays off if I want, and so I kind of let myself do anything I want on Sundays if I can. But yeah, I mean, and I never miss a day. I mean, I really am diligent about it, even if I have to do it in a car on the way to a job or something, being driven. So many people talk. It's not like I have any special ability to focus, and a lot of my time, although recently it's gotten much deeper, is spent on thinking, planning, plotting, stuff that the thing you're not supposed to be doing. But I always touch that place, that quote transcendent spot that makes me come back for more. And what I've learned is it's a muscle, and if you do it, I started doing it 5 minutes a day. I'm up to an hour and a half. And I never thought I could do it more than 10, I mean, but committing to that time, it becomes easier and easier. And I think as I get older, it's going to be a gold mine, like of time, if I'm lucky enough to live to be really old, because it's supposedly scientifically very restorative, and there's just something. It's the thing we're talking about getting away, wanting to shut down life, wanting to get away using narcotics or alcohol. It's that, when you get to that spot of transcendent, when you're just present in the actual moment, it's euphoric.
We'll be back for more in a moment. If you'd like to be more involved with us at Still Here Hollywood, you definitely can. Just visit patreon.com/stillherehollywood. You can support us for as little as $3 a month. You can get our episodes a day before they post anywhere else. You can see what guests will be coming up and submit questions for them. You can even tell us what stars you want us to have on as guests. You'll see what goes on before and after the episode, plus exclusive behind-the-scenes info, pics, video, and more. Again, that's patreon.com/stillherehollywood. You told me you've been married 30 years?
Yeah, I mean, married 20. We were married in 98. So, and we were together for 3 more years on top of that. And that's another thing that fascinates me. Like, I met my wife when I was about 21, 20. We didn't get together for another 15 years probably. But I knew that she was the one. It wasn't like I knew I was going to get married to her someday, but like, because she went off, she got married somewhere else, she went somewhere, I went, had lots of relationships, and but she has a very distinct name. Her name is Debon, Debbonayer, Debonair. And so
really?
My friends, and Scott, it's her real name, it's Irish, Scottish, I guess. My friends remembered me talking about the Debonair. And sure enough, we got together, we got married, and we're together coming on 30 years. And it has not been easy. There's been a lot of ups and downs, mainly because of me, not her. but we're through the hump, and we're in a great place. And I find I'm fascinated with myself that I actually had the insight that she was the one, because it's not like I have clairvoyance on anything else. I can't tell you there's nothing else I can say except maybe that I was able to succeed in show business, that I was able to think like, oh, this is what I'm going to do and it's going to work. But she's amazing, and she's really, if there's anything coming out of my mouth that has some kind of a grain of wisdom, it comes from having, her kind of reflecting back to me over these years.
Yeah.
She's a really great soul.
I was with a partner for 14 years, and I often think, had I stuck with it a little longer, everything would have been okay.
Interesting. Well, I mean, look, I mean, just knowing that is huge. And you'll apply it to the next one. But yeah. I think you're right. I mean, we easily could have fallen apart. And if I were a minute younger, I would not have made it. If I gotten, my daughter tells me all her friends all these kids are getting married now, these 20-somethings, and I'm like, oh, mistake. Because
definitely.
First of all, it requires great sacrifice, and I think you have to have, for me anyway, I had to have sowed my oats, so to speak, in many ways, to be able to be in the relationship. And even then, we had to deal with a lot of ups and downs.
What was your first reaction when you read the script for Northern Exposure?
I remember thinking it read like no other TV script I'd ever read or seen. At the time, I'm like the right out of the Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers. It was like 10 years to the day that I booked Northern Exposure. I had done, I don't know, maybe almost 100 little plays, big plays, little plays. And so I was on a lot of short lists in New York for TV. Like anything being cast, if I was in the ballpark, age-wise or type-wise, they would consider me. And so I was reading a lot. And this read like a movie script. It read like an independent movie. Like there was a director at the time named Bill Forsyth who was making interesting movies, Gregory's Girl, and just a couple really great movies, and Local Hero with Peter Riegert. But it read like one of those movies, and the character just kind of fit. Like I got him right away. Like we're not exactly the same. I'm very different than him in so many ways, but I'm also very similar culturally, geographically. And so as I started to kind of prepare for the audition, it just kind of was like putting on a jacket that fit really well and was really comfortable. I went in and read, and the rest is history. But it was like nothing else on television. Once I finally saw it, it was the only show I can think of where landscape was a character at that point. Now you see it more and more, especially something like Yellowstone or The Last of Us. All these shows have. I used to say that we were the beginning of the cinematizing of television. The show.
With that little moose that would walk in each week.
The moose, not so little.
Not so little, right.
His name was Morty, and he's passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And they, you can't train a moose, so when they shot that sequence, they had to fence in the entire town in order to, because they just basically set up a few cameras and let it go, and then cut it into the opening sequence.
Can't go moosey, moosey, moosey.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
What has been your most gratifying experience in acting or directing?
Well, directing, I made a movie that I directed, I co-wrote, I produced. I ended up playing the lead by default. Liev Schreiber was going to do it, and then he got a big payday, and Laura Linney played the lead, and it's called Maze. That was really satisfying because it was mine, I love the idea of being a part of all aspects of the creative process. The genesis of something, of an idea, the exploring the dramaturgical possibilities, the screenplay, the concept, the execution, and then the actual acting. I love all those things. So to be a part of it, it was by default, not designed, that I had to play the lead part in this. I had to make it at a certain point because too much time. My agents were like, you can't spend any more time on this movie that you're not going to make any money on, and it was like coming on 2 years, I think. So I did, acting and directing at the same time is not necessarily ideal, but in many regards, it makes the job easier because you don't have to explain yourself. I didn't have to argue with myself. I just did what I knew I had to do. But that was a really rich experience. Acting wise, well, I did a play 5 years ago. I did Death of a Salesman out here in a little theater. That was pretty much the high watermark of my acting experience, because it may be the only masterpiece I've ever worked on. Most of what I do is making things work that don't really work on paper, either rewriting them literally or playing it in a way that takes attention away from the flaws, or being a part of some entertainment within the idea so that no one pays attention that it doesn't really work, or Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller it's a masterpiece, and I didn't have to spend any bandwidth on making it work. It was like I had to fulfill it, and to not have to be able to just get on that wavelength and ride that poetry. It just was blissful, man. I mean, it just was like. And hard. I mean, it's a hard play, And I had this idea that, Willie Loman is weighted down, so I wore a 20-pound weight vest underneath my suit and ankle weights, and so, I had a chiropractor I'd have to go to every week. So can we curse here?
Yes.
He fucked up my back, and but that was the high water mark. As an actor.
Once again, working in that small Washington town, and you came from New York.
Yeah.
Just like the character.
Just like the character.
Was that challenging?
That part of it,
Did you feel like a fish out of water? Or did it help you bring something more to the role?
Absolutely helps. I mean, there were certain corollaries between me and Joel. Being out of our element, that was helpful. Although I was living a pretty cush life in Seattle. We would shoot on sound stages in Redmond, right next to Microsoft headquarters, and then we would go 1 or 2 days out of every 8, we would go to a town called Roslyn, which was in the show called Sicily, and that was about an hour and a half southeast into the Cascades, and so when we would go there, you'd be pretty isolated. We would stay in these kind of motels, and that certainly helped. There's something about being in situ, as they say, in the environment that helps. If you're freezing, you don't have to act. You don't have to act. You're just freezing. Walking down that street already put me in this environment that I didn't have to think. I didn't have to imagine. What it's like to be in this town. I was in that. So it definitely helped me, for sure.
I can't get over the fact that you have a wife named Debonair. I like that.
The one and only. And you know what my daughter's name is?
What?
And this is her real. Well, obviously it's her real name, but my last name is Morrow. So her first name is Tu. She's Tu Morrow.
I like that too.
She's the one.
People aren't going to forget her name.
No, man.
When they
it's a great name.
When they come across it.
But I had so many friends that said, "You're ruining her life, and we're never going to call her that. She's going to be ruined." And meanwhile, she grew up out here, and everyone's got every kid. Gwyneth Paltrow's quit his Apple, and she's going to school with this kid Life, and so no one ever they made fun of her because every kid gets made fun of, but never for her name. But we gave her a great middle name, Simone. So if she hated it, she could be Simone, but she didn't hate it, and so.
Simone's a nice name too.
Yeah, I call her that a lot.
Simone, Nina Simone.
Yeah,
Think of her. Was there ever a period of time, or was there ever an occasion that you can remember where you had trouble staying in character and not breaking up laughing or getting upset about?
Always laughing. I mean, for sure. Yeah, and it's the scariest thing. It's the scariest thing in the world because one could argue that control is the most important thing an actor needs. And the two things come to mind. One was a play I did called it was an adaptation of a Turgenev novel. The novel is called Fathers and Sons. I can't remember the name of it, but Ron Rifkin?
Yes.
Remember Ron Rifkin? Ron Rifkin was in it. And Ron Rifkin and I were part of a theater company in New York called Naked Angels that we co-founded. It's still around like 40 years later, but so many famous people came out of it. It was called the It Company of the 90s. We had Marissa Tomei and Gina Gershon and Fisher Stevens and Sarah Jessica and Matthew and endless, and Ron Rifkin and Kenny Lonergan, just endless list of people that have become really big contributors to this business. And Ron and I had done a lot of plays together, and we would laugh. We would, every once in a while, we'd get into a thing. And this one particular show we were doing, something happened. Someone was supposed to show up on stage to deliver a cue, and they didn't come. And so we were just sitting there, and we looked at each other, and we started. And it got so bad. It was this kind of thing. We were just like, and I just was trying not to look at him. I was so out of control that a little bit of pee came out in my pants, just enough to scare the shit out of me. Because I was like, "Fuck! I just peed in my pants!" And so there was that. And then, it's funny. I would get my own copy of dailies on Northern Exposure, and have them in a box somewhere in storage. And I have zillions of dailies of me cracking up, especially a lot with Corbett. Corbett could make me laugh to this day. I mean, we had him on this podcast that we're doing, and he makes me laugh. He's just really charming. But Adam Arkin really makes me laugh because Adam has the same cadences as his dad, recently deceased, the great Alan Arkin. And so Alan was growing up, he was a huge inspiration before I even knew I was going to act. But even then, once I became an actor, I just was obsessed with him. And so Adam shows up, and he's just as funny and in those same rhythms. He's just got those same way of talking. And he would say something, he would crack me up, and he could control himself. But I would be like, like you see the cameras behind me, you just see my shoulders going like this, and the producer would come up and say, "Rob, man, we gotta get the day, man. We're like, we can't do this." And as soon as they said that, it was worse, So so I've developed the habit of digging my nail into my finger to just like when I sense it coming, because once you cross the line, it's hard to get back.
Oh, it is hard to get back. And the funny thing is now with the internet, there's so many examples of that kind of thing, which I enjoy.
Of course.
I sit there and watch.
No, we love it.
Yes.
There's something about seeing someone, trying to not laugh. That's just makes you laugh.
Right. We'll be right back. What did playing Joel teach you about yourself?
Well, Joel kept having to learn lessons about appreciating things that were out of his wheelhouse or out of his comfort zone. He was constantly learning about other people's experience, and so it's hard to say exactly what I learned from him, but I did learn literature, philosophy, spiritualism, metaphysics, science, all this stuff that he would have to know. If I didn't know it, I would have to go and learn it. So there's that actual stuff like that, all these medical terms that I didn't know what meant, I'd have to go and learn them, or studying techniques to be able to fake doing it. So I learned that stuff. But I think, the ability to change and grow, I probably got some good insights from Joel's experiences.
Are you still growing?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
If you're meditating, I think you're still growing.
I am. Yeah, man. It's like I know less than I've ever known, and I know more than I've ever known. But
that's a funny way of putting it.
Yeah, I think the challenge is to continue to be willing to grow, because I speak to sometimes older people, and they're like, I don't want to change. I'm good. I don't need to hear that. I know I'm good. I've lived for 80, 90 years. I've lived all this time. I don't need to, I'm good. I don't need another lesson. And it's like, I hope, and maybe I'll be that way too, but I hope to not be that way. I hope to constantly be opening myself. I am, I am anything. If I am anything, I won an award when I didn't win a lot of awards, but when I was a kid, I played hockey, and one year I won Most Improved, MIP, not MVP, MIP. And that's me. I am the most improved player because I am dedicated, even on the way here, I'm going to podcast. I'm constantly reading, I guess you could categorize them as self-help books or self-awareness books. I definitely am learning every day and dedicated to it.
You came in here with a list of things you might want to talk about. How about sharing?
Let's see, what else?
Have we missed anything?
We talked marriage, sobriety, career longevity, writing, and music.
Tell me about your music. I didn't know you fancied. Are you a musician? Do you sing? Do you play?
I do it all, and it's an interesting evolution because, kind of referring back to our talk about drinking and stuff, I remember being a young actor. Actors have a lot of downtime, right? No matter what, no matter how successful you are or not, you have downtime. And you can either go hang out at the bar or you can do something constructive. And early on, in my early years in New York, when I was getting my 10,000 hours in, I started studying photography at the News School, which ultimately led to directing. And I started taking guitar lessons because I liked to sing and I wanted to be able to accompany myself. And thereafter, I always had a guitar on the set, and I always played in my trailer. But I just strummed. It was nothing. About in 2010, I was on a TV show called The Whole Truth for ABC. We did 12, 13 episodes. It was me and Maura Tierney, and it was airing, and it was a bomb. And the PR people came to me and said, Conan O'Brien just came. We were on Warner Brothers lot. Conan O'Brien just came. He's doing his new show, I guess on TBS it was, and he's coming to do this new show, and he's on the lot now, and he's going to set up a camera in his waiting room, his lobby, his waiting room, and anyone on the lot who's on a show, they're going to give 10 minutes and they're going to put it on their site. You got to do something, the PR people said. I was like, okay, well, what should I do? And they were like, well, why don't you do a song? You know, you always got your guitar. And I was like, okay. And they were like, you know, write one. I was like, write a song like that? And I was like, yeah. And
I got 10 minutes, write a song.
No, they said they need in 2 hours. And I was like, and I was in this place where I was like, I'm going to, you know, I was saying yes, okay, if I can help the show, you know, let me see what I can do. So I go in my trailer, I take a basic blues progression, right, which is a simple form, and I'd written screenplays, and so words were not a problem for me. So I wrote, you know, apropos lyrics to the show. My assistant comes and takes 2 cue cards, and we go in Conan's lobby. It's on YouTube, you can see it. It's not great, but I play the song, and it's not bad. But a light bulb went off, and I thought I wrote a song. And that became this passion. I started studying songwriting. I found a partner who was at first my guitar teacher, and then we formed a band, and we wrote a ton of music, and I started performing. And at first I would go out by myself to these little clubs that have, like, you know, music acts like the Mint, or, you know, Molly Malone's, you know, these little clubs in New York, in LA. And I would say I want to go early, and I would go at like 7 o'clock at night when they were still setting up. There'd be like 3 people at the bar, one of whom would be like, isn't that that guy from, you know, but I sucked. You know, I did suck, but I videotaped it, and I watched them, and I studied, and now 15 years later, I'm good. You know, I'm not great, but I'm good, and the music's good. I've put music in TV shows. I perform with different bands now for charity. It gives me such joy. I do it every day. I play the guitar probably 3 hours a day.
Really?
Yeah, and I go out and I perform, and you know, I think I was talking before about this idea of I have to create. Like, that's just my nature. I've got to create. But as an actor, you're beholden on them saying come or not, you know, and then you've got to negotiate it. And, you know, it's like, as a musician, I just go to work. You know, I can play in front of 1,000 people or by myself in my studio, and I can find joy. And there's something about music that's different than anything else, any of these other disciplines, because it's direct. You know, it's not here, it's here. Music hits us in a visceral way. And so those vibrations, those harmonies affect me, and it gives me incredible joy. So I do it a lot, and I don't have any, you know, my first band after this was called NHI, which stood for No Harbored Illusions. And now, you know, it's just a great way to create, and I love writing and learning and playing. And
music for me, if a song comes on that I like, it will take me back to whatever period I had first heard it, or the last time I heard it that was good. It can grab me and pull me back to where I want to be.
It's like a sense memory we call in acting. Yeah, of course. It's transformative, you know. It's also irrefutable. which is what I think you're saying. It's like if the Jackson 5, oh baby, give me one more chance, if that comes on, you can't not like kind of feel good, like,
Yeah.
you know, or Stevie Wonder, you know, or you know, Taylor Swift, or you know, there's so many, you know, there's nothing like it. And so to be able to spend time on it is one of the greatest gifts of my life.
I would choose songs that aren't quite as hip as yours, but
Well, it doesn't. I mean, if it works, it works. You know?
I hear Dionne Warwick's voice, and
I'm with you right there. I'm with you in Dionne
Oh
Warwick.
my God!
I mean, anything.
I know
Burt
I'll never
Bacharach.
love this way again.
Oh my God!
Yes.
Great.
That takes me right back.
Totally.
Yeah, it does great things for my nerves.
Yeah.
I should have played records instead of drink,
Well.
but you live and learn.
Yeah.
You and Janine and others are starting a rewatch podcast.
That's right.
How did that come about?
Well, the show started, you know, forever. You know, on my social media, I can get anytime I put up a picture from Northern Exposure, I have a zillion stills. They go, the fans go crazy, like around the world, or wherever I go around the world. People are like, "Why can't we see that show again?" First, why can't we see it? Because it wasn't streaming until a few years ago. And why can't you do why can't we see it again? Why don't you reboot it with all these reboots? I tried 4 incarnations. We came this close, and for dumb reasons, it didn't happen. And I got frustrated, and I kept getting bombarded with people saying we want more. And then these podcasts started happening, and I thought, well, why don't so I wrote a memoir, which I can't tell the details, but it's coming. And I had to rewatch all the shows in order to write the section on North. I hadn't watched them since they aired. And it just reminded me how special the show was, and that it has something that I think these times really need. The reason Ted Lasso was such a phenomenon is because there's something benevolent in those shows that the world needs. A lot of TV, great TV that I watch, is very cynical. Northern Exposure wasn't cynical. And it just made me think, oh, it might be fun to kind of talk about what was so special about the show. So I reached out to Janine because, you know, we were it was an ensemble show ultimately, but we were the kind of initials. We were number 1 and 2 on the call sheet. We were, you know, a lot of the show was through our eyes. And so so we got together and we started doing it. And we've shot about 6 or 7 so far. We're going through the whole cast. We started with the creator, Josh Brand. It was created by Josh Brand and John Falsey. John Falsey has passed away. So Josh came on, and then we had John Corbett and Barry Corbin and Cynthia Geary and Darren Burrows. And next week we have John Cullum, who is 95, and he's going to come into the studio. Janine and I are going to be together in New York. And it's been, for just selfishly, just hanging out with them, all of our lives changed so much, and to be a part of something that clearly I can't tell you how many people have come up to me and said that show changed my life. You know, it made me find my mate. It made me choose a career. It made me move to this place. It made me open myself to religion. It made me, you know, whatever it was, nature, whatever it was, it changed people. And so to kind of get into that pool again and just reminisce has been really fun.
It was my sister's favorite show.
Yeah.
She would never miss it.
Do you know why? Do you remember? Was there?
No, I don't remember why. She passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry.
At a very early age. She was early 40s.
Oh.
But I just remember that when that show came on, you know, she had to see it. She had to be somewhere where she could watch it. Not like today when you can stream things. But
and it's funny. It's like the number 3 stream. I don't know what they call it, nostalgia show or old show on Amazon Prime. And what I find fascinating about it is it doesn't look dated, which just blows my mind, because most stuff you look at that's 25 years old is looks it.
Showing its age.
But because everyone's in plaid or jeans and driving pickup trucks, it doesn't look that different than when you go out on the street right now. And so, and because of the themes that were so universal, it doesn't feel dated. It feels like it's happening right now.
Do you live in Los Angeles?
Yeah, mainly. I'm in New York a lot.
Do you like L.A.?
I do. I've grown to love L.A. I mean, I don't like the fires. We had a nightmare. We didn't burn down, but we almost did. And that was really traumatic, and it's been traumatic. We were evacuated 4 times over about 8 years, and it's really taken a toll on us. But that said, I love LA. I have so many friends here. I love, even just driving. I spend a fair amount of time over here, but I'm not that much in Studio City, and just driving the way Waze took me to get here today, passing all these stores and little neighborhood restaurants. There's just so many nooks and crannies of LA that are, one of the great gifts of Waze is it takes you through these areas that you wouldn't know. And I'm forever fascinated with the architecture and the diversity and they used to get a bum rap about culture, but I don't think that's true. I think it's very culturally rich. And yeah, I love it. And then you got all this nature.
I think culture has bent to the way of L.A.
How do you mean?
I mean, I remember feeling those same things before I lived here. That's L.A., kind of dismissing it.
Yeah, like Woody Allen used to say, it's, like the cultural activity is making a right on red.
Yes.
I pulled your Woody pulled your thought.
That has happened a lot in my life. Woody. Anyway, do you remember any specific scenes or that would characterize or explain what Northern Exposure was about? Is there a thematic way of describing the show?
Yeah, and it's not my way of describing it, but the way Josh that created it said, as I said before, it's a benevolent universe. And then I'll further that it's a benevolent universe where anyone can exist, anyone can coexist, no matter what your predilection or your predisposition, what orientation is. You can exist in Sicily. And as he said on the podcast that he just did, you could do anything on Northern Exposure. A character could get away with anything as long as there was no malice. Even manslaughter. You could kill someone as long as it wasn't there was no malice behind it. And I think that's what, that was really what gives it its kind of philosophical weight, because it wasn't Pollyanna. There was dark stuff that happened. The characters went through stuff, but they all were. There was a striving to coexist that I think gives it its specialness.
Janine Turner's character was so strong and independent. How did that dynamic push your character?
Well, I mean, they were opposites and similar in so many ways. It's because I've been watching. I was just joking with Janine. It's like both of us would do this. Both of our characters would do the same thing. We'd say, "Hey, you look really nice today," but that where'd you get that shirt? It's like as soon as they would say something positive, they would undercut it. And they were both headstrong. And as Janine and I are, and our characters are, there was things that dovetailed between us and our characters. But I think it gave, a challenge Joel, to meet someone like her, And watching the shows now, early on, when Joel showed up, he had a fiance in New York who comes out and visited. A wonderful actress named Jessica Lundy came and played Elaine. and but you see the moments where he's kind of clocking Maggie in a different way. Like at first they're like oil and water. I mean, he calls her a whore in the first time he meets her. He says, look, don't, he thinks she's a prostitute coming on to him, which is ridiculous that anyone would have that, but he does. And so they just start combating. But then you just see these looks where he's just like, who's this girl? Like, and then he undercuts it and doesn't think about it. And, and the conceit of a show like this is will they, won't they? So you have to keep keeping them apart. And so it wasn't for a good couple seasons before our characters actually consummated it. But the back and forth was what made it great. And Janine and Maggie both gave me a run for my money.
What are you looking forward to doing in your career, in your life?
So I'm really digging writing. I've written a lot of screenplays over the years, some of which have come to fruition, but it wasn't like I was a great screenwriter or anything. I could help projects I was on. But when I wrote the memoir, I had the confidence. It gave me the confidence to think, I could write a novel. And so I'm well into the novel. It's all outlined and I'm writing it. And I love constructing ideas and thoughts, and I love words, and putting that all together is just something I dig, and ultimately the autonomy, which is the same with music, that I can do it. I'm not trying to sell. I'm not going to pitch this book. I didn't do it with my memoir either. I didn't want to have a deadline. I didn't want to be beholden to anyone. I love the idea of creating on my own timetable, and if it's good and worthwhile, maybe it'll be seen in the world. But the process, I'm digging the process. So I've got a second idea for a novel. So if this one works, it takes a long time. It took me 4 years to write the memoir.
Did you consider, for any amount of time, the impact a memoir might have on people you write about?
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding? I had to cut so much.
Oh, did you?
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. I had so many stories, and I wrote them, I wrote them out. But then upon editing them, and my wife, and, it just was like, I had to really ask myself, I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't want to hurt anyone in this world. And even though some of these stories are so good, I just was like, I can't put that out. But interestingly enough, I have a project for charity, and I was asked to write something, and I was trying to come up with something, a showbiz anecdote, and I was trying to think of someone, and I was talking to my friend, this guy John Wolk, who's one of the kind of producers on Kimmel's show, and I had told him this Val Kilmer story that I tell sometimes, and he said, "You got to do that story. You got to tell that story. It's like it's a crazy story," and he said, "You got to tell that story," and I was like, "Nah, I don't want to contribute to his. He's suffering enough. I don't need to make it worse." And he says, "Oh, well, when he dies." And he died 4 days later.
Oh, God.
So I wrote the story.
I've been writing a memoir, too, for some time now. I took a class at Second City in Chicago.
Oh, cool.
Called Writing the Humorous Memoir.
Oh, wow. That must be interesting.
Oh, it was great. It was great fun.
What did they, like, what's the bent of that, the humorous?
To get your own voice onto the page.
Right, yeah. So it will be inherently funny if you get your own voice?
I think so.
Right.
I have friends who think I'm pretty funny.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was going through all this agita, is that the word, in my mind about, I can't say this about this person,
right.
I can't say this about that person.
Right. It's tricky. You can't. I mean, you can, but you have to ask yourself, what is the upside? I mean, you have the momentary entertainment, but if someone's going to be harmed, I don't know. I mean,
At the same time, I want it to be honest.
I'm telling you, I had to cut so much stuff. But what you'll find is, what I found was that it's so much bigger than that. I thought it's going to ruin I'm going to have nothing good to say because I have only bad to say. But you'll find that, because I think what was important was when I kind of stumbled onto what the themes that I was dealing with, then it became something bigger than just, oh, here's my good story about this celebrity I know, and so I think once you know what you're trying to put out into the world and why you're doing it, it'll focus it and allow you to not worry.
I saw an interview with Barbra Streisand when she was talking about her book, which she wrote.
I love her book.
Do you?
Oh yeah, did you read it?
I have it at home. I haven't read it yet. It's too thick.
It's fat, but it's well, listen to it. First of all, it's great because she does it.
I bought the audio.
Yeah, it's like 25 hours.
Well, I saw her in this interview, and I
it's
thought
a lot
was...
of. I could in an afternoon. I could cut 5 hours out of it because there's a lot of redundancy, but it's pretty brilliant.
Well, somebody was asking her about it, and she was talking in this interview about how she tried to sanitize it, but then her editor or publisher or someone said, "You got to leave some blood on the page."
Yeah. I remember she was okay. I mean, she was actually, I know some stories that she left out about people that were pretty harsh. And I know that, and the stories that she wrote about were gentler versions than reality. So I could tell where she was not going for the jugular. And it didn't hurt the book. The book is, she's just one of the most rare, she's just such a rare talent and individual that and she's very honest in the book,
and she sings pretty good. Tell me about this dinner crew. I'm always seeing pictures of you guys on the internet, on Instagram. It's Noah Wiley, Stephen Weber, who've been on the show, Eric McCormick, who's been on this podcast, and yourself. How did
Bryan
it come?
Cranston, Alfred Molina, Kevin Pollak, Jason Alexander,
How did it
Michael
come
Nuri,
together?
LeVar Burton, Larry Fishburne, Titus Welliver. It started, I don't know, about 5 years ago. I think it just was casual. Like Spencer Garrett, who's really the mayor of Hollywood, and he is the one who kind of was the catalyst for making this cohesive. Got a couple guys together, and they had dinner. I wasn't in that first dinner. And they were at like Musso and Frank's, and they just thought, oh, we were all like character actors, sharing stories. It'd be fun to just do this. And then it just grew into this core group, and we started meeting like once a month, and we would have these incredibly great meals that were full of laughter, because I mean I have to shut up half the time because you got Kevin Pollak and Richard Kynes in there, and Jason Alexander, and they're so funny, and McCormick and Weber, they're just so funny that I just would sit back and laugh, just rolling with laughter. But what happened was we started to get really intimate, and it became, you hear women talking about women's groups all the time because they share, and we started to share a lot, and it became it became a support group, and we are very protective and supportive of each other. If someone's going through something, to be there for them, to see what we can do. And it's just become this thing. We're called the CADS, which stands for Character Actors Dining Society, and it's a real source of support and comfort and joy. And we just made a big deal to do a project for charity, which I can't talk about the details, but we got a fortune up front for this project that we're going to give to showbiz charities, the Actors Fund and the Motion Picture Home, and so now we're going to do something good with this. Like it's just pure, and we're all character actors, I guess.
I'm about out of questions. Was there anything you wanted to talk about?
I think we covered a lot of ground.
We did.
Yeah, it was
I
fun.
think so too.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you. Thanks
I
for sharing
appreciate
your
it.
story of your sobriety. It's
If it helps, which is kind of an egotistical thing to say, but if it helps anybody, I'm glad to share it.
I think it does, Steve. I think it does. I think even if it's just incrementally, it helps. It helps putting this into the zeitgeist. And I think when two people like you and I sit here and say, I don't miss it. I do not miss, drugs and drinking and cigars and coffee.
Oh, coffee.
Coffee I gave up too, man.
You did?
Yep. And I don't miss it. I mean, if I did miss it, I would have it. I have not had one moment where I thought, boy, I'd like a cup of coffee. And so I think there's something on the other side of all that that's really worth exploring. So if we can help someone on that road, all the power to us.
Well, one of the other things I've talked about, which I've got a lot of response, positive feedback, is being gay. And I was told by so many people, you can't. You can't.
I think times have changed.
Yeah, finally, for the better.
Absolutely.
But there were so many people who said, don't.
Right.
Don't.
Well, I'm glad you are. You seem comfortable in being gay.
I feel much more relaxed, and the feedback has been so positive.
Yeah, good for you.
So. Thanks, Rob.
My pleasure.
Still Here Hollywood is a production of the Still Here Network. All things technical run by Justin Zangerly. Theme music by Brian Sanishin. And executive producer is Jim Lichtenstein.